welcome back. We want to talk about introduction to CVEs and vulnerability management. Now, in our previous section, we talked about vulnerability management, so now you have a better understanding of vulnerability management. Now, when we talk about CVEs, what is CVE? And what is CVE in vulnerability management? Now, in short, I just want to make it very easy for us. Now, CVE stands for Common Vulnerabilities Exposures. Now, these are common vulnerabilities that have been detected by various systems, by the manufacturing companies, and they have put together a remediation plan on how these CVEs could be remediated. So they have a list of all the vulnerabilities, and they have a list of how these vulnerabilities need to be remediated. And they have made it public so that everyone who scans their system gets to identify any of these vulnerabilities within their environment will be able to address it. So you think about it like this, an ID system or an identifier system that is being used to be able to list cybersecurity flaws or vulnerabilities. So a vulnerability in Windows that allows hackers to be able to take control of your computer will be given a unique CVE number. And each entry includes details about the vulnerability so that any organization that sees it will know what this vulnerability is about, what goes into this vulnerability. Now, why are CVEs important? CVEs help organizations to quickly identify and address known security vulnerabilities. Why? Because you know it. You have it already in your book, so you just have to go in there and be able to address it. And they provide a standardized way of tracking, prioritizing, and mitigating security issues. CVEs also help to ignore vulnerabilities that can lead to data breaches or system compromise. So imagine that you are leaving your house unlocked at all times. Now, CVEs will help your security team to identify and lock the doors of the system. And these are critical for data breaches. Because you remember the Equifax in 2017 had a data breach. If they had known this vulnerability, they would have known how to be able to patch their system and make sure that this vulnerability has been dealt with. Now, what are the components of a CVE? Now, so we are breaking down what a CVE entry is. Now, a CVE has what we call a CVE ID. That is a unique number that identifies the vulnerability. Description, which explains the vulnerability and its impact. The published date of the vulnerability, that is when the CVE was first added to the list of vulnerabilities. Then it has what we call the CVSS score. Now, that is what we call a common vulnerability scoring system. Now, this rates the severity of the vulnerability. So it gives the vulnerability a rating that, oh, this vulnerability is 7, is 8. And it has so many factors that it goes through for you to be able to come up with that number. And we'll go into a CVSS very shortly. And so when you're talking about breaking down CVE or when you're talking about CVE, just look at the CVE ID as what? A reference number. So a CVE might have a reference number and it will describe the flaw that allows the attacker to install the malware on your system. So now, what are the flaws? The flaws could be like maybe this affected your network. It came through your traffic network. It came through your user when it came to your user. And so that is how the number has been generated. Now, I hope you have a better understanding of it. Let's get into what CVSS is. Now, CVSS is the score that is attached to each of these vulnerabilities. And it ranges from 0 to 10. Now, it considers so many factors to come out with the score. The first factor that we can talk about the exploitation, the impact on the system, and it also looks at the scope. And this is what all come together to be able to give you that score, to determine the severity of the vulnerability. Now, think about it that and this rating is all from a 0 to 10. 0 meaning that it's a low score, and meaning that this vulnerability is not very dangerous. And 10 meaning that it's a high score and this vulnerability is very dangerous. Now let's go into breaking down this CVSS score again. Now, when we talk about the breaking down the CVSS score, it has what we call the attack vector, that is the exploitation. So where is it coming from? Now it has a complexity. How complex is this that we are talking about? And there's a way that we calculate all these things. Hopefully I might do a video show you how to be able to calculate all these things one day. Then the impact, and the impact talks about the full system compromise. That is it something that has compromised the whole system, or it is something that has compromised only a section of the system. So if a vulnerability that allows remote access and has low complexity for attackers, it will get a CVSS score of maybe 9.8, meaning that it's critical. Why? Because affecting the network, when you look at the complexity, you see that it's a very high and it's a full system compromise. And this will help the security team to prioritize this issue to fix first, because the score means that this is dangerous. Let's go fix it. And that is how you'll be able to go ahead and to be able to fix it. I hope you have a better understanding and a basic understanding of what the CVE and the CVSS score is. I'll catch you in the next class.